guys, I'm back in the greenhouse. It seems like I'm always in the greenhouse, and it's because I am. This is my last tray of greenhouse tomatoes that I need to pot up, and to be honest, they needed to be potted up about a week ago, but you know what? Sometimes life just happens, and tomatoes are super resilient, and I think that they'll bounce back. We hope. But these are the last two varieties I have left, which is Cherokee Carbon and Harvest Moon. And the reason why they're later than everybody else is because I lost the seed packet and I had to reorder it. Very in my character. But I almost completed this without turning the camera on because sometimes I just need to get stuff done and the camera always adds time. But I made a video about this last season, but for those of you that are new or haven't seen it, I'm going to show you my favorite way to pot up plants. Now you can see behind me, I like to use soil blocks. So all of these are seeded into soil blocks, like 1-inch soil blocks. And a lot of things can stay in those soil blocks for their entirety until they're ready to go out. Things like squash, peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, things like that I won't do in a tiny soil block just because they need more soil to get growing than like flowers and lettuces and greens and stuff like that. So these tomatoes I did in the small blocker, the 3/4 inch blocker, just so that I could start a lot on my heat mat at once, because I had a bunch of trays of these, and so it saves room, but they pot up super easily. Let's see if I can get one. The soil's wet, so the blocks don't always stay together, but like this is a little tomato guy. He looks a little sad. He's seen better days, but he'll be totally fine. When I go to pot it up, I will pot it up all the way up to here, and it will sprout roots all through the stem. Now, you'll see lots of different resources for soil blocking mixes. Never once have I ever used a special soil block mix. I have always just used potting soil. I never buy seed starting mix because those are generally soilless mixes and they don't have any nutrition. So if you're using a germination mix, you're going to have to pot them up into something with some kind of fertilizer in it or feed them. And I won't remember to do that. So I just always start out with potting soil with nutrients mixed in, and that has worked out best for me. So I've got my soil in this old kitty litter bucket, and I'm just gonna add this. I just keep like a tote that I do all my mixing of soil in. All I have to do is get this pretty saturated. You're gonna want this, in my experience, the wetter the better, you know what I mean? Like, I like to be able to wring the water right out of this. To pot them up into, if you're only doing a few, or if this is all you have access to, a regular 10-20 tray works great. But what I have found when I'm doing a lot of the same thing is I really love these produce crates. Now, check your local Facebook marketplace. These had jalapenos in them. So someone on Facebook is getting these and then reselling the totes, and I think I got them for like 50 cents a piece, which is a really awesome price. I mean, they're not as hardy as some of my other totes that are collapsible and thicker, but I've used these for multiple different things so far and they've held up. And so I can fit more per area if I use these bigger trays. And so that's what I like to do. I've had a sewing machine for forever, fun fact. And I've sewed stuff here and there, mostly like blankets or whatever, but I've really gotten into sewing clothes. Like I made this, humble brag. I also made my jacket, my little old lady quilt coat. Anyway, I just have to say that because those of you that make your own stuff, you know you have to tell people. This method does take a little extra time. If you're used to just, you know, filling a pot and then sticking it in, it does take a little extra time than the traditional way. But for one, you don't have to buy the plastic pot. Now, I try to not use as much plastic as I can, or if I am using it, I try to reuse it. But in all reality, I'm balling on a budget over here. And the less that I have to buy for like inputs, the better to me. So not only that, because I'm doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of transplants, and that's a lot of plastic cups. And for one, I lose them or I'll leave them in the field. And it takes twice as long to transplant something in a pot or a plug tray than it does a soil block or a soil ball, because you just pull them apart and you stick them in the ground. I love that. Also, last year was the first time I tried this method. I've always been a soil blocker, but it's the first time that I did the balls for my tomato plants and peppers, and they were the best transplants I've ever had. So when you grow in a soil ball or a soil block, your roots can grow freely, and then they get pruned by the air. Wherever the root of the plant hits the edge of your soil ball or block, it stops growing. It naturally just prunes itself. And so it doesn't get wrapped and wrapped and wrapped around inside of a pot, because if it hit the wall of this, it would just start to spin around. And then all of a sudden, now you have this root ball of tomato. When you make your soil balls, like I said, I like it really, really saturated in here. And by really saturated, I mean literally sopping wet, because it sticks together much easier, I find. So how I'm gonna do it is I just take this, look, it was in its little soil block, and I usually just mound it up in the corner, and I make a little hole with my finger and I just stick it down in there. And then I literally, all I have to do is just scoop up that much, and I'll try to put a lot of the start underneath the soil, because tomatoes can grow new roots from their stems, and so you'll have a healthier root system the higher up the plant you go. You don't want to go too high, because that can choke the plant, but literally that's it. And I get questions on if these stay together, and they absolutely do. You might have one here and there if you knock it, but especially once the roots start growing in here, it holds the whole ball together. Because trust me, nothing lasts if it's fragile. At my house, on my farm, just in my life, because I am not a super careful person. But this is all I do, and then I'll just continue to do this with the entire tray, and it's that easy. Now let's say that you wanted to make a soil ball that you could plant a seed into. You're just gonna take something, a popsicle stick, a marker, this is what I have right now, and you're just going to form your soil ball. You want to kind of squeeze some of the water out and form it around there. So you have your ball, and then you just take the marker out, and it's like it makes a little hole that you can put your seed into. Because sometimes if you try to press the seed into the top of a hard, like formed soil ball, you end up cracking it. And so I found this little trick, and that really works. I will grow all my transplants like this almost. The only time I really use pots is when I'm growing something to sell to somebody else, so that I can label it, because that's important for them to know what it is. But soil balls like this, I will grow my squash and cucumbers and anything else that's gonna need more soil than a little soil block. But anyway, I was just showing you guys my favorite way to pot up my plants. If you try it, tag me, find me on Instagram and tag me. I love seeing everybody's pictures and videos. Instagram is my favorite platform. So find me there if you haven't. It's Honey Trail Farm on everything. But like I said, I've got to get off here and get busy, because these tomatoes are not going to wait much longer for me. I've put it off quite possibly as long as I can. But anyway, thanks for watching. Until next time.